everybody, Ryan Medora here, and today we're going to talk a little bit about playing in 6/8. This is kind of your like classic soul R&B feel. It takes me back to like Sam Cooke records and things like that, and it's just like a cool way to think about counting and playing in 6/8. So if this is kind of a new time signature for you, or if you've never thought about the nuances of that, this is a great lesson for you. And if you want to get tab, notation, anything like that, please head over to my Patreon page. You can support this channel, get all the goodies there for this lesson, and then basically everything you see here at this channel. And today we're going to go into, talking about 6/8, how we count it, how we feel it, ways to navigate a chord progression, and hopefully it'll shed some light on this topic for you. So let's get into it. Today we're going to be working in the key of C, and I'm kind of working through the chord progression of Bring It On Home to Me, the Sam Cooke classic. That's kind of what I have in the back of my mind, where we're basically in the key of C major. We're playing with 1, 4, and 5 chords, C, F, and G. So we're going to work with that chord progression, but we're also going to talk about how to play to a 6/8 feel and how to navigate movement between chords. So if you're not familiar with 6/8, it's this kind of waltzy type feel. It's not like a duple meter feel, it's a triple meter feel. Say that 3 times fast. But usually duple meter feels are thinking like 4/4 or 2/4, things like that, where you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll subdivide it with eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 6/8 is going to have a different feel to it. It's a triple meter, so we're going to have basically groups of triplets. So instead of kind of dividing a note in 2, so we have eighth notes, we're going to take it and divide it in 3, so it's going to be triplets. So we're going to think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this 6/8 feel really means we're going to have 6 eighth notes, and those eighth notes are going to feel like triplets to us. So it's going to be 2 groups of 3 triplets, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you're counting 6/8, I like to count it that way: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that means that kind of the way we deal with strong beats and weak beats and the motion that we bring to a bass line, if we're going to be kind of using a transition to go from chord to chord, are going to kind of fall into the way we count these triplets. So to begin, let's start with kind of the beginning of our chord progression, where we're kind of moving from a C chord to a G chord. And so I'm thinking in my mind, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 bars of C to 2 bars of G. Now, the important thing about that is we think about being on a chord for a bar, and then the second bar being something where we establish being on the chord, but we want to create a transition to the next chord. So I like to think about being on the C chord for 2 bars. The first bar is pattern, the second bar is going to give us transition moves. And then when we go to our G chord, it's going to be similar, where if we're there for 2 bars, the first bar will play as pattern, and then the second bar will play as transition back to the C. So I like to think about using my root, 3rd and 5th, or my triad notes. That's a great way to kind of take this like classic 6/8 feel. And I'm going to place them like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm playing my root note, my 3rd, and my 5th. And then I'm going to leave a little bit of space and then create a transition to go to that G chord on that second bar. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you may have noticed that I played my motion notes on the 4, 5, 6 of that second bar. So that's a great way to think about setting up our next chord. Again, we're dealing with 2 sets of triplets. The first bar of music, we're going to really just solidify being on that C chord. The second bar, we're going to use that last set of triplets, the 4, 5, 6 count, to use notes of our scale to imply the motion to our G chord. So think about it this way: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can hear that now as I count it out. I'm playing root, 3rd, 5th, and then my motion notes, I'm playing 6, 5, 3. So these are just all the intervals based off of this C chord. And you'll notice that they kind of follow our C major pentatonic. There are also notes that you might be really familiar with from like a standard blues bass line, but it's really helpful to kind of think about scale degrees and then where they fall rhythmically. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. and then set up my landing on the G chord. So again, the 4, 5, 6, the last triplet right before landing on your next root note of your next chord, that's like the special place where you want to throw your transitional notes in. And again, you want to use 3 notes. That's the move you have. You have 3 notes of motion, and then you're going to land on your downbeat of the next chord. So you can do that in a variety of ways, but I like to do it this way here. Go to my G chord. And believe it or not, I can do exactly the same move on this G chord because I can play my root, 3rd, 5th as normal. And then my motion notes, I can now use the 6, 5, 3 of our G chord. And that just like perfectly gives us the right voice leading back to the C, because these notes over my G chord are going to go E, D, B. And that B is just a half step away from landing back at our C chord. It's the perfect move. Oh, I love it. Music theory. Who knew? It's pretty great. So we have that move over our C chord. It's like perfect. C to G, back to C. We can ultimately now go to our F chord, the 4 chord, and we can do something very similar. We're going to be on our C chord, land to the F chord. Again, you can kind of see that I'm using that same move, that 6, 5, 3 on beats 4, 5, 6. Gets a little tricky there, but the 6, 5, 3 intervals on the 4, 5, 6 of the second bar of our 6, 8. That's going to lead us right to this F chord. And so there's a thing that happens here. The more you get comfortable with it, the more you start to realize that you may not have to count this, but you'll start to feel where the movement notes are. And again, it's really all about using that last triplet to set up the downbeat of the next chord. That's like the main goal here. And so as you do it, you'll get more comfortable with it. And you may also say, you know what? I don't necessarily always have to play my root, 3rd, 5th. I can play my root, 5th, 6th. I could also kind of bounce between the root, the 5th, and the octave. That's a fun move. So if you're at this F chord, you know, I like to kind of play high, 5th, low. So I'm going from that high F to the C to the low F. That's a great way of moving around. I can walk myself back up to the C chord. There are a lot of things that you can do here, but the main part about it is realizing we're sticking with our major pentatonic notes, or we're using just notes of our major scale if they help us move in the direction of the chord that we're going to. And we're really taking advantage of using that 4, 5, 6, that last triplet set of our second bar that we're on to get us back to the root note of our next chord. So I'm going to play through this a little bit. Hopefully now that we've talked about it, you'll kind of start to see these moves happen and see some of these transitions, and it'll make a little more sense. But I'm also going to throw in a couple other fun moves for you here. But let's take a look at how we play through this chord progression. Here we're at our C chord, the 1 chord, to the G, back to C. Here's our F, back to C. I'm going to go up to the G, to the F, to the G again, and back to the C, to the F, to the C, to the G. Now, this second phrase of this chord progression kind of moves through the chords a lot faster. We're not necessarily there for 2 bars, we're there for 1 bar. You can kind of see that there's a lot more movement. And I'm doing this to kind of follow the melody in my head of this particular song, like Bring It On Home. But with anything like this, the same rules apply. You know, you want to have your kind of pattern that you play at the beginning of the bar, and then the movement notes that you play towards the end of the bar. So the chord frequency, meaning like how fast we're on a chord for and how much we're changing, whether it's 1 bar or 2 bars, is really going to play into how much movement you can include in your bass line. So again, the name of the game is follow your chord progression. Understand that 4, 5, 6 is the great way to move around that back half of the bar to set up your next chord change. And depending upon how long you're on a chord for, 1 bar or 2 bars, that's going to give you a little bit of flexibility in terms of the way you play through these changes. So I hope all that kind of resonates with you, gives you a little bit more insight into this like 6/8 feel and the notion of setting up the next bar of music and setting up that next root note, and that you're able to pull this into any song that you play that has a 6/8 feel, whether it's a classic soul R&B tune or even pop tune, anything like that. And if you want to get tab notation, anything like that, please head over to my Patreon page. You can find that there. And in the meantime, happy practicing, everybody. Keep it groovy.